on this weekend. First and foremost, weather impact meteorologist Gary Frank here as we kind of update you on what's happening here over the course of the next couple of days. And, it's important for us to talk about things in segmented times rather than one blanket thing, and explaining some of the possibilities and why some areas may get severe weather and why some of us may not, and what's in between. And I think the number one thing that we can think about this weekend is the most impactful thing that we're going to see is flash flooding or flooding concerns. And that's because of Saturday. I do want to go in chronological order, and I'm going to talk about obviously tonight's severe weather threat, and then go through Saturday, and then go through Sunday as well. And as we talk about that, that's what we're going to settle into as we look ahead. So let's focus on that here as we go here in the short term, because we're going to focus on Friday first. And you can see as I pull this up how, most of us are dealing with, in terms of, the weather that's going on right now. Let's focus on a couple of things right now where we have, for the most part, you're still going to see, I would say, relatively speaking, just cloud cover. There are breaks in the clouds right now, and you'll see that area wide. Look off to our northwest, right? I mean, you've got some pretty significant snowfall, believe it or not, right? I mean, you're talking about snowfall in some of these areas. I'm going to move this camera just a little bit more so that when I tilt, it's not hidden by the box, but I want you to be able to see that as well as I kind of scoot things in just a little bit. So there we go. So overall, what we're going to continue to see is the fact that we have some breaks right now, right? We're pretty clear and we're pretty quiet. But I want to point out what's happening here as I zoom in just a little bit more. Temperature-wise, you're in the 50s on the other side of the state. This is the front that's going to be impacting us through the weekend. But it's a source of a stationary boundary, whereas we're almost at 80 degrees here at noon, where, we have 50s behind it. We've warmed up significantly, and we're going to continue to warm up here over the next few hours. 40s and 50s, we're in the upper 30s behind it. That cold air will eventually push in, at least as we get into Sunday night. But until then, things along this front are going to be very important. And also, I want to point out, as you can see, your text questions, I will be able to look at those as well. I'm also going to be looking at, and I'll turn down the volume on this right now. I'm also going to be able to look at these things on the text line here for our Facebook chat. I'll get to that to the end. So I want to talk about what's going on here for now. And like I said, I'll go through this whole thing and then I'll answer your questions. So that's one of the things I'm going to look at right now. Temperatures right now in the 70s. Now, first and foremost, this severe weather threat today is in that slight risk category from the Storm Prediction Center. This is the slight risk. This is category 2 of 5. And it really is a majority of our area, really almost all of our areas involved in that in some regard, right? When you look at this from this standpoint, I talked about yesterday, if you followed along with the stream, that it stretches all the way from central Michigan into central Texas. This is about a 1,300 mile span or across that brings us that severe weather threat. But the reason that it is somewhat kind of broad in the sense that everybody is in that slight risk for severe weather is the fact that, there are some things that are holding us back from maximizing our potential. Now, I do want to show you some of our small things like our tornado risk, just to kind of ease your mind when we talk about comparing it to the most recent severe weather threat events. This is a 2% tornado risk, areas in central Oklahoma, northern Texas, and a 5% risk. Keep in mind the bigger threats last time were upwards of 10, 15, and 30%. We're not anywhere near there. That's not what we're dealing with this time. And I would say it's low for a lot of reasons, which I'll mention shortly. The wind risk, that's going to be one of the main things that we see. We may see 60 mile an hour wind gusts, and that kind of lines up with that slight risk for severe weather, the same location. Same with hail. We may see some up to quarter-sized hail. Those are the things that are going to be important for us to deal with tonight. One of the reasons that I don't think we're going to maximize our severe weather potential is, of course, as we're close to 80 degrees right now, it's warm, it's windy. We have that unstable air mass. It's obviously very humid outside. You can feel that. There's no doubt about that. But we're going to be dealing with something today called the cap. And if you followed along the stream yesterday, what we're going to see is, and I'm going to point this out right now a little bit more and get this cord out of my way. That's not okay. So what we're seeing tonight, that's a little bit different, right? Even as I just kind of draw things on here, if we look at this particular thing right here, and I'm going to right here. So this right here, as we take just any parcel of air, that's how we describe it. Any air, as it rises, as it gets higher, it gets cooler. And on this graph, for this particular instance, it's going left, right? When we go left, we get cooler. When we get to the right, we get warmer. Same thing as you look on any graph. To the right of zero is higher, to the left of zero is lower. And that's the same thing in this instance, right? But look at this right here where they have this specific arrow on this graphic. When you get to this spot, there's a little spot that goes to the right. That means it gets warmer above the surface. And so as the day heats up, we see these warm updrafts form. Now, as long as the temperature keeps falling with height, air will continue to rise. But if the updraft hits that warm layer of air that's right here, well, we're not going to see those larger clouds or storms. And that may stop at about 10,000 feet. That may stop at about 15,000 feet. Yes, we can still get rain and we can still get thunderstorms, but they won't be as severe. We won't see that severe hail, the wind that's involved. So we can have all the ingredients in place, but they won't be materialized because of this warm air cap. And that's one of the reasons that, yes, a lot of us are in that slight risk for severe weather as we have this front that's racing across the state, at least at this point. But we may not be dealing with severe weather, but we have to message that it is potentially there, because if this cap breaks, which happens, right? And that's what I'm going to show you next. If there's sufficient heating like we have today, and there's an area where the cap is a little more thin, and you'll see that's where it's broken, and that's where those storms form, and that's where it kind of explodes, where we see those storms that take advantage of all those ingredients. And that's the most important thing for us, right? So from a standpoint of, hey, it may look like we're talking about the potential for severe weather, but nothing happens, or we get a couple of storms. Well, this is why right here, so that's one of the reasons that we have to talk about this in that sense, right? So that's one of the things that I want to point out. So when I look at Futurecast here, you'll notice that throughout the afternoon, I think relatively speaking, things are dry this afternoon. Now, there may be a few showers as we get closer to that front, and you'll see where that is right now as we get those storms that may develop 6, 7, 8 o'clock, where we have weak enough area of that cap where we see a few storms develop. Now, look at them. Nothing are all that impressive at this point, but there may be one or two that get through that cap and produce some maybe nickel size or up to quarter size hail. That's good enough to get a severe thunderstorm warning. You may see that later on tonight. By 9 or 10 o'clock, as we see the sunset, the instability starts to wind down, and we don't take advantage of those other severe ingredients in place. We may still see some rain, a few thunderstorms, but the severe weather threat is weaker. So if you have Friday plans and you're wondering about whether or not things are going to be severe, and you have some anxiety from the last few storms, I don't think this is going to be some big severe weather event, but it is possible that one or two of these storms could be on the stronger side. That's what we'll continue to keep you posted on. But I'm not certain that this is one of those nights where you go to bed and all of a sudden, hey, we've got more tornado warnings, because I think at some point this front will push through a good majority of the area, especially by midnight. And then we just turn to showers and storms, right? So that's where I want to pause right there, because I want to talk about what's up next in terms of our severe weather impacts for Friday, right? Wind gust of 60 miles an hour. That's on the low side, but that's our main threat. Tornadoes, I think, are very minimal. Like I said, it is not out of the question, but that's a very low threat. 1-inch hail and then maybe some flooding, not out of the question. I don't think that we're going to get to the flooding aspect of it here. This is a localized flooding thing at this point, but that's the way it seems for Friday. Now I'm going to get to Saturday. Like I said, let's check one day off at a time here. Friday, we have a flood watch that starts this evening and goes all the way through Sunday evening, because we're going to watch that same front, and it starts to settle into the area. And you're going to see things that just kind of sit here and watch things by tomorrow morning. I'll get all the way back for you. As we get through midnight, watch how that rain rides that front. You can see where the front is, and I should be able to point this out for you specifically if I can hit pause again, because that's going to be one of those things for me. I'll try to do this on the fly, and I'm going to go all the way back here. I'm going to add this point. Sometimes these computers make me do things that are a little more difficult than they should be. Okay, so here's where this front is right here, and I'll put it on this arrow. You can see where this front is. It's moving through St. Louis at about 12:30, right about here, and you're going to continue to see that here, right? Along that front, we have showers and storms that are developing and really running along that at a parallel motion. And because of that, we're starting to see a consistent, steady rain throughout. And as we see that throughout the evening and early morning hours, you still got rain, right? It's moving over the same locations. And watch as I continue to let this loop. Even as that front moves south, watch how rain, maybe a break at times, but watch how rain continues to move over the same locations. Now, they will be varying levels of intensity. I'm not expecting that we're going to see 1 inch per hour rainfall rates at this point, but I want to point out the fact that it is on the higher side. As we see 3, 4, 5 o'clock, it's still raining. We may see a few more showers and storms by the evening, and rain continues through a good majority of Saturday. While there may be some breaks, I don't find there to be many as the rain continues even into midnight, 1, 2, and 3 o'clock. That's where I'll pause for now, at least. And I want to talk about some of the expected rainfall. And you'll notice that as we get into our area, we're some 1, 2, 3, 4 inches of rain in some cases by the end of Saturday. I think in some cases we'll see some locally higher amounts up to 5 or 6 inches. That's not out of the question. And I want to take you to another one of our things here that let's make sure you guys can still hear me. I know that it drops out when I am looking at that. Okay, so I know you guys can still hear me now. That's positive news. I switched back. What I want to point out here, as you can see, just like everybody else, even forecasters are not in fact, the best way we can use AI is for our benefit, right? It doesn't have to take over everything, but we want to use it for our benefit. And the Storm Prediction Center, Colorado State has a machine learning program, and also here in SLU, they have one as well. Try to bring this up ever so often in terms of severe weather. That's one thing that we look at for looking ahead for the severe weather. But I was actually going to pull up another one. Let's see. I'm actually going to pull up a different thing here. Do I have that settled in? I believe I do have it settled into here. We've got a couple of different things that we look at, not only in terms of the potential for severe weather, but we also look at some different products. And I'm going to pull this one up here because I think I can find this on here for you. I believe maybe I put it up there right after me. Yeah, let me pull this up. I want to show you a different model that's not in our computer. So that's why I'm kind of messing with this thing a little bit more. There's a different model that's not in our computer that I want you guys to have access to, so you guys can see all the different stuff that we look at. And I want to look at some of this rainfall probability because I think it's important to talk about some of the stuff the National Weather Service will look at as well. And let's find this right now. I'm going to have to go into this thing right now and find it because it is being difficult on me. I had this all lined up for you nicely, but I want to point this out so that you guys can see this because I think, I did have it in here. It just looks weird because I've already got this product in here. So take a look at this product right here. What you'll note is that is a probability percentage that is right here that shows the probability that we're going to see upwards of 4 inches of rain. And I play this out for you so that I can draw on some spots that I think are going to see a little bit more rain than others, right? So that means you're looking at a probability percentage that is 40 to 50% that areas from Union all the way to Gerald could get upwards of 4 inches of rain all the way through the weekend, right? Now, there are some pockets that are even higher, but like I said, this stretches all the way somewhat into the city of St. Louis, but you can see where the bullseye of expected heavy rainfall is. And that's where the training of those thunderstorms are likely to be. And I wanted to point this out. That does stretch into the city, into North County, into Franklin County, into Wildwood, and even into spots to our south as well. So I want to point out where I think the bullseye is going to be, at least at this point. This is south of Herman into Gasconade, north of Sullivan on 44. These are the spots, if I'm going to pick, are most likely to see maybe a 5 to 6 inch total, right? That's, I think, a very important thing for us to mention here, at least at this time frame, because we're going to see the potential for some heavy rainfall totals that could eclipse 5 or 6 inches. Most of us outside of that have a very low probability. You can see that spots in the Metro East have a 5 to 10% chance, while others have a 10 to 30% chance, right? It's really that 40 to 50 that is there, right? So that's what I want to point out when we talk about just the flooding concerns at the very least, right? So those are the things that I want to mention right there in regards to Saturday, right? I talked about why Saturday is important, and I want to be mentioning. I want to mention what I expect on Saturday in terms of rain chances. Because if you have outdoor plans, I'm not fully convinced that they're going to be not fully washed out. I really don't think there's going to be much dry time at all on Saturday. There will be breaks in the rain enough where it allows some of the creeks and streams to not rise very rapidly and therefore get the flash flooding. But there are going to be one or two flash flood warnings. So keep that in mind. We talk about turn around, don't drown, don't try to drive through flooded waters. Now is the time, even through this evening, if you're watching this stream and you have the day off, or you're watching it from work and you have, some added daylight hours, get those drains unclogged. Maybe cover a couple of things up. Just kind of prepare for things as we start to prepare for some of the rain to settle in. And that is why we have been outlined from the Weather Prediction Center. Those specific areas that I just mentioned, that's part of the reason that goes into it, where that 40% chance of flash flooding within a 25-mile point on that red side of the map. And that includes, spots right there. Let me go back out. Zoom back in just a little bit. Farmington, Rolla. Let me zoom into some of the spots that are involved in that. Sullivan, Viburnum, DeSoto, even the city of St. Louis. Some spots like that. Wildwood, Festus, you have those areas. And then outside of it is a 15% risk. Still up there, still possible, but lower risk. The red areas where the bullseye along that front is going to be. So that's what I want to point out. Now, our rain chances on Sunday will differ. We'll start out with rain chances in the morning, lingering, and then they'll start to fall apart briefly. So now we're on Sunday's equation. Friday, limited severe risk. Saturday, a flooding risk. Sunday, our better severe risk. And of course, Easter Sunday makes things a little bit more difficult. And that's what I want to point out and talk about here. Because one of the reasons why we have this all going on here is the fact that we have this low that will be settling in. And we also have another main front that's going to push through and finally end all this stuff for us eventually. But we're going to see the main front push through that'll dry us out and eventually create more storm development. It's also centered around a surface low, which will be moving through central Kansas and into Missouri. And along that, it will provide some very favorable dynamics for severe weather development if the other ingredients should arise. Now, when we talk about our severe weather threats on the third day, I do want to point out where we are with that at the moment, because let me pull that up for you on the fly, as I often like to do so. Let's find where that is. Let's go to the side. Right. We are going to pull this up. And I want to show you where we are in terms of what the Storm Prediction Center says for Sunday. And let's see if I can pull this up for the severe weather risk and outlook. This says Friday. I'm going to pull up the third day here. So this is Sunday. Now I'm going to pull this out a little further. And you can see that areas as far north as Troy into Jerseyville are involved in this slight risk for severe weather. It goes as far west as Jeff City, Lake of the Ozarks, if you're spending time there, and all the way to the south. Once again, this is a slight risk for severe weather. This is category 2 of 5 from the Storm Prediction Center. And the reason for it that we have, at least in this sense, is the fact that there are conditional threats, whether or not there are a couple of things that we look at on Sunday. Are we going to see the rain get out of here in time? And I want to show you what I mean by this. Let's focus on Sunday, and we'll go all the way back here. I talked about some early rain on Sunday, right? We have early rain 3, 4, 5 o'clock. We have showers and storms 5, 6, 7 o'clock. We have a line of storms that may hang around here. This is just one model depiction of what may happen. And rain may be around 8 or 9 o'clock. But watch how it exits by mid-morning. At this point, will we clear out? Will we see more sunshine? This particular model tells us that it is possible that we're going to see enough of a break in between rounds of storms. And if that's the case, look at storms starting to fire up along that. 4, 5, 6 o'clock. Look at those storms. They're taking some pretty good shapes. They've got some of the favorable outlines for perhaps rotation or wind damage, and those are all going to be possible here. If this scenario materializes, Sunday will be the better severe weather threat without a doubt, as we have some other favorable dynamics. Will this be some 314 day? I don't see that. But we could see a tornado or two at the very least. And I want you to be prepared for this here on Sunday as we see that potential. You'll notice as I scan this future radar, and this is just one model, but as I show you 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, we're going to see this push through. And I think it's eventually out of here by 10 o'clock. But I think that's important because it gives us the opportunity for severe weather. So our severe weather impacts on Sunday, like I said, I'm outlining Sunday as the better day here for Easter Sunday. I have a medium risk for 60 plus mile an hour wind gusts, even a low risk for tornadoes as well, and a medium risk for hail. And let's call it a high risk for flooding simply because the ground is very saturated. And I know that these storms may be moving a little quicker, but if they dump a quick inch of rain, it's not out of the question that we see some localized flooding with that as well. I know it's the lesser of days for flash flooding, but I want to point that out as probably the higher risk simply because we will have the ground so saturated at that point, it will not take long. And so that's one of the things I want to point out. So let's talk about the two scenarios here. Scenario number 1 on Sunday, right? Got this where this is the quieter of the two scenarios. Those showers hang around longer, 10, 11 o'clock. Those clouds limited stability. The storms may be moving through strong with the front, but they're not severe. We have limited severe weather threat with that. That's okay, right? Those are things that we're all okay with, right? But here's scenario number 2. Scenario number 2 on Sunday is the rain gets out of here very quickly. I don't know why it's odd color, but we'll change it. I was going to change it to a different color, but scenario number 2, we'll change it while we're on the fly. We like to do things on the fly here. I tried to change this to a red color so you could tell the difference between what was going on, but for some reason, I bet you I know why. I bet you this thing up here is got, let me see if that does it. Found it. We solved the problem pretty quickly. That's what we try to do around here. Scenario number 2, okay? Scenario number 2 is if the rain is out of here pretty quickly early. If so, then we may heat it into the upper 70s and low 80s. Then all types of severe weather are possible, right? So I think those are the two things that I'm looking at in terms of what is the most likely scenario. Right now, I'm leaning towards scenario number 2 because some of the most recent data that's coming in tells us that we're starting to see some clearing. We're starting to see the opportunity for severe weather. And I think that if you're going to see nothing happen today and you're going to say, well, this is no big deal, I want you to go back and look at this video and talk about and look through all the things that I lined up on why we may not have severe weather today, why tomorrow is more of a flooding threat, and what we're dealing with for the potential on Sunday. This may change. My hunch right now is that our severe weather threat increases a little bit. And I'll take you even back to this machine. I'll take you back to this machine learning thing. Every time I switch to the web browser, I can show you my voice goes out on here. I'll take you back to what I was talking about, the AI forecast thing. And you'll look at the day 3 severe weather comparison. One of them on the right, that is from the Storm Prediction Center. The one in the middle, that is from the Colorado State Machine Learning Program. And the one on the left is from our local one in SLU. And you'll see those are severe probabilities that go up. And I think that we're going to see at least a very possibility that stronger to severe storms are more likely. That looks to me a better scenario than what we've had today, and a lot of sense. And we're going to start to get some of the model runs that are settling in here right now. We've already got a couple of updated computer models, which I know Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell will be looking at this afternoon as we prepare for this. But right now, if we're going to rank it in order of importance, it's today, lower threat, tomorrow, higher threat, flooding, the most widespread impacts, and number 2 is probably Sunday afternoon. That's the way I see things right now. I want to leave that up, and I want to look at some of your questions. I'll switch to Facebook first, since there's a few people on here. Let's see. Somebody asked about the chat's getting wild on Facebook. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but we've got Rivercrest predictions. I can go over that. The river crest predictions are they have them pretty low, which I think is important, right? They're not quite as high as the last time because we're not going to see the widespread rainfall in that sense. But I do want to pull that up for you so that you can take a look at that, because I do think that's important to talk about in terms of the river crest predictions here. Let's look back here. I'll go over here and find that for you. Got to pull that. When we do stuff on the fly, that's how things work here. So I got to go pull up the river crest predictions here. So, and that question is from Christina. Here is the latest on the river crest predictions. Right now, the Merrimack, obviously the one that we look at the most, those river, in fact, I got to pull that back up here. Let me get back to this one. Okay. The river crest predictions, I have Christina on Facebook asked what we're dealing with. This is up a little bit from yesterday. It was at 20.8, if memory serves me, yesterday. The crest forecast is supposed to be at 21.8. Let's see what the Big River and the Burbis River are going to be. 21 points. So, that those things are better. We're still working on some of those. I think the river crest, we'll look at that here in the short term, but it is not going to be quite as bad, but we're going to continue to keep you posted on some of those updates as well. Let's see. What else do we have? Nothing on Facebook. So we're seeing lower people on Facebook. So Denise asked, what are the chances of tornadoes tonight? I think pretty low, really. I don't think that we're going to see much in the way of a tornado threat. If we had one tornado to the north, a tornado warning, I suppose I could see it, but it is very, very low. I'm not sure the ingredients are there for us today at that point. So good question, Denise. I'm just not expecting a widespread severe weather outbreak. I think there's some other factors that are limiting things tonight. I do want to get to my chat line here to where I can see what some of the questions are from some of our questions here. 618-946, weather for Jerseyville, Saturday around noon to 4 o'clock. Thank you and happy Easter. Happy Easter to you, 618-946. I think we're going to be dealing with a steady rain in Jerseyville. So unfortunately, that's going to be what we're going to have to focus on for most of Saturday. Let's see, 314-368. When will severe weather approach St. Louis on Sunday? I could see it probably as early as somewhere between 4 to 6 o'clock. That's a time frame that I want to look out for if we're going to get it. That would be the time frame that I would look out for the most. I'll show this on our future cast again for those that are just watching and checking in. I think this is where we are with things right now as we get into Sunday. Watch where we get into the afternoon. This is what we have to deal with for Sunday. I think, let me see, get past that one. That's why it won't let me go here. Is this the right one? No. Let me pull that up for you. I got to scroll all the way down on my computer. I got about 3 different computers running over here. So bear with me as I pull up that future cast for you and show you what I expect to happen on Sunday. Let's see. This could be the scenario that we're dealing with on Sunday. Between 4 to 6 o'clock, and then even into St. Louis, that could be a 6 to 8 o'clock thing. Those times may change, but that's what we look for right now. Let's see. We've got, I'll get back to the Facebook questions in a second for those of you guys watching on Facebook, but I want to get to some of the text questions here as well. Let's see. We are on 314-397. How will traveling be on Highway 44 Friday evening and Saturday afternoon? I think Highway 44 on Friday evening is good. I think we're in good shape Friday evening. Saturday afternoon, I think you're going to be dealing with some rain, and there may be some heavier rain just north of that. So typically a spot that there could be some flooded spots along the highway. I think there are going to be some maybe minor ponding on the roadways. It's definitely not going to be a full speed kind of afternoon driving home on Saturday afternoon. So that's one thing that we look at there. Let's see. We've got 636-255. Scared about Friday severe storms. I'm more anxious about Sunday. Since 314, I've been battling with a lot of storm anxiety. I understand that. I would say none of these things are going to be as significant as that day or even the last day in terms of the ingredients right now, the way things look, the ingredients that cause the stronger winds and larger tornadoes. If we're going to see tornadoes on Sunday, they would be on the weaker side. We're talking about EF0, EF1, that keeps them all between 120 miles an hour or less in terms of wind speed. And I know that's significant, right? But I think that there's not going to be as much of a widespread outbreak, and we're going to be on keeping you through this and keeping you posted. So we'll tell you when to go to the basement, things like that. I've got a severe weather tonight be in Edwardsville, Madison County before 10 o'clock. I don't think there will be any severe weather before then. If they did, Kimberly, it'll be very marginal. That's one thing. Amber asked, I've mentioned and stressed about the flooding. I have a day trip planned to go to Bonne Terre and Festus tomorrow. What's the likelihood of those areas flooding? I think, the likelihood of those areas flooding isn't out of the question. I think, I don't know the roads specifically that you're traveling on in some of the low-lying areas, but I don't know that we're going to get enough rain. I don't know what time you're going there, Amber, so perhaps you give me an idea. The first part of the day, you're going to gradually see some rain. I think at that point, we'll have already seen an inch and a half. We can get by without flooding there. I think it's the tail end of the day as we see repeated rounds of rainfall. I just want you to prepare for if you're going to drive along a creek or a stream, make sure you don't drive across those things. Don't try to risk it, especially if you're not familiar with the area. Try to let Google Maps or a friend or where you're going give you a better idea to drive around, and just be prepared for that. Just don't try to be in a hurry to get somewhere because it will be consistently raining. Tim asked any concerns for Hardin or Eldred, Illinois area. And Tracy asked, how do things look for Greene County, Illinois? Right now, everybody has the same threat on Sunday. There is no north or south, east or west right now. We really want to see how things play out in the morning. Everybody has the same threat, but I think areas off to that south and west spot that I showed you with more rain. Pat asked if tonight between 6 and 9 o'clock, Lindbergh and Watson, it's possible we'll see an isolated storm pop up that breaks that severe weather or breaks that warm air cap that I talked about. These storms are isolated. They will be brief. If they could get going on the stronger side, they would be upwards of 60-mile-an-hour wind or large hail. That, to me, seems a maximum threat. Otherwise, we may just see a few pop-up showers and storms around this evening. And so those are our main things that we look at the moment. 217-936 asked for Greene County, Illinois tonight and Sunday. And I think it's possible we'll see an isolated storm in Greene County tonight. I think it's very brief, but overnight, rain really settles in. And by Sunday, same thing. Everybody has the same type of risk here on Sunday at this point. That's what we look at for right now. So in terms of our severe weather threat, like I said, let's focus on those tale of two scenarios where we have scenario number one right now, where I think, to me, on the day, scenario number one, let's focus on this right now. Scenario number one on Sunday, you have showers hanging around and cloud cover that limits instability, right? We're not going to see as strong storms. Now, the front's going to push through, and there's going to be maybe a line of storms that could impact us. The storms are strong, but they're not severe. But scenario number two, push the wrong button there. Scenario number two, the rain's out of here quickly, 9, 10 o'clock. We heat back up in the upper 70s, low 80s. Then all types of severe weather may be possible. And that's what we want to watch out for. So other than that, I believe that, let's see, and then 217-836-67 said, thanks for fixing audio quality. Glad that it's working well. I'm doing things a little differently. As you guys can see, I'm just kind of in an office. I can make this a green screen behind me for this purpose. I didn't choose to do that. I can kind of do it whenever. I like to be able to do this whenever and not always wear a tie, especially when I'm not on the air, on main air. Those guys are taking care of it. I can take care of this stuff. And of course, I'll be in there this weekend. I'm sure you're going to see me and Scott again on Sunday in some regard. That would be my best guess at this point. I will add this to the updated web story, so I have an update for you as well. And I'm going to kind of have a timeline. So make sure you guys share that with everybody so that we're prepared for what's going on, not only tonight, but through Easter weekend. So we'll leave you with that. I think I've answered all your questions on the stream for now, and I'll have another update for you guys throughout the rest of the weekend. Scott will update you throughout the rest of tonight, and Tracy's on in the morning, and then I'll update you throughout the rest of the weekend. So that's our main story for what we have going on right now, and we'll enjoy the rest of the dry time this afternoon. At the very least, take advantage of it. It's really nice outside. I'll try to do that myself as well later on this afternoon. So we hope to see you later, and I will leave you with this full screen on what we're dealing with here for our scenarios for the weekend.